America's #1 take action success coach and strategist, empowering, educating, inspiring, and yes, igniting people to take action with Jet Propulsion just like you. And we assist people to find and embrace their life purpose, live their highest version of themselves and their vision, and become the best version of themselves, because we have a lot of versions, forging a strong foundation to soar to success. If you have any interest in working with us or to find out more information, please visit us at ldcstrategies.com. Today on Healthy Lifestyle, we're excited because we're going to talk a little PR and a little bit about promotion and how you can do that. And we're going to give you some verbal caffeine to light you up with possibilities, because that's what we do here. So I want to welcome to the show Allie Zendrian, more commonly known as Allie. It's Alexandra. But I call her Allie. Most people do. She's the founder of AtoZ Communications, a journalist who turned public relations expert. And Allie has been in this field for almost 20 years, and you wouldn't know by looking at her. She works primarily with financial services, fintech, and healthcare clients. And I know that she has been very germane. A lot of clients of hers have been actually on my show here. So welcome to the show, Allie. I'm so glad to be here with you. You're on the other side of the chair today, because you're usually sitting across the desk, reminding people, don't say something stupid. Which is very possible. I know there are times you're like, "Oh, why'd you say that, Lorianne?" But how are you? Welcome to the show.
Oh, never on your side, Lorianne. I'm
Ah,
good. But yeah, like I was reflecting, it's interesting to be on this side of things, but now I'm channeling to myself, don't say something stupid.
right. Yes. I'll remind you, but don't worry, you can't possibly do it because you are so good at what you do. And that's something that struck me a long time ago. We've been working together for a number of years. And oh my gosh, you were just so poised and so calm, and you're really great at getting us out there. And anybody you've worked with, you've just really elevated their presence and their positioning out there in the market. So I'm so excited to have this conversation. So, which leads me into my first obvious question is, when does someone know that they are ready and or need a public relations person?
First of all, Lorianne, so I love you and thank you for all the kind things that you just said. That was very nice of you. Thank you. So I think
All true.
how someone determines if they need a public relations person, I think we have this perception, sort of like with estate planning, you think that you need to be a millionaire to have estate planning, when ultimately the answer is you need to be a human being and you need to have things or a child or have healthcare needs, and then you deserve an estate plan. Similarly, with public relations, if you want to just make sure that you're presenting yourself as best as you can out in the marketplace and that you're protecting your reputation on the other side of things as well, then you could use public relations. So you don't need to have amassed any kind of like certain stature or like amount of money or whatnot. It could be helpful for just about anybody.
Yeah, because I mean, the whole point of public relations is to get you out into the public eye. So that's really what you're grasping to do, is to be able to get yourself out there. And if you have this wonderful, yummy service or product, or you're doing something yummy, if nobody knows about it, it may be yummy to you, but you're not sharing, and that's not okay. It's not okay not to share. I know that you coach your clients when they come to you. And a lot of it is about coaching them how to be interviewed by reporters and things like that. What are some of the top, I'm going to say, pieces of advice you give majority of your clients?
Well, so some of them, so I'm heeding some of my own advice and then not heeding it at the same time. So you can see that I'm a human person and that I'm working on myself as well. But among the things is, so make sure that you dress appropriately, and by that I mean, so if you're one of those people who love busy patterns, then somebody's looking at their pattern and they're not looking and reflecting on you. So I did my best to wear something relatively plain today. My background, on the other hand, over there should be a little bit more plain than what it is. But, situations are what they are, and my basement's flooded. So sometimes you get what you get.
It's all good.
But I think thank you. But I think as far as content and people should portray themselves, it's making sure that you come into an interview prepared. So at the end of the day, you're answering a reporter's questions, but at the same time, you need to use that interview as an opportunity to advance your message to the extent that you can. That doesn't mean that you get to do a commercial for yourself during an interview, because then the reporter's going to get turned off and that's going to be the end of that. But to the extent that you can plug yourself and, position yourself in a way that someone understands where you belong, then you're utilizing the opportunity instead of just answering a reporter's questions so that they can do their job. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
you have to get something out of it too.
Yeah, no doubt. And intentionally, you need to think about before you go into an interview what your intention is to get out of that interview, because that's why you're interviewing. Otherwise, why are you there? I mean, it's nice for mom to see you on TV or hear you on the radio, but at the end of the day, or on a podcast, right? But at the end of the day, what are you trying to get out there? What are you trying to communicate? Really important to be intentional about that. And I know early on I would miss really low-hanging fruit opportunities where it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even mention my book, or oh my gosh, I didn't mention that workshop that I'm working on. So those are the things that I want you to really think about. And this is what you lead them to do, right? As a PR person, you lead them into understanding, like, okay, what's our goal? What are we trying to achieve here? What do we want to get out there, right?
Exactly. So you should walk into an interview. So to your point, I think people look at it as I got my name up in lights, and obviously that's exciting. But if you're not using the interview time to get that message across. So I encourage people whenever possible to have notes right next to them. So, on a podcast like this, you don't want to be like looking off to the side and staring at them necessarily, but you want to give yourself a reference point so that you can say, yeah, I wanted to bring up the fact that I'm working on, or that I just started a new service, or that I'm launching in a new location. So bringing that up naturally into a conversation. So whether it's trying to lead a reporter in that direction, or whether they bring up something like, oh, do you have any new locations open up? Oh, yes, in fact, I have one in Fort Lauderdale. So, yes, let's discuss that a little bit further. So to your point, it's being intentional and making sure that anything that you might bring to the table that would be beneficial to the reporter or to the audience to know, that you're bringing out to bear.
Yeah, love it, love it. And just to be intentional here, this is a radio show first. For my JVC broadcasting radio show owners, sorry, John, it's a radio show that you're listening to right now. So thank you so much. And it goes out on iHeartRadio as well. So I'm very blessed as far as that goes. But understand what you're meaning is that it's really important for you to have those things. And it's okay, right? A lot of people get nervous. They're like, is it okay? Can I use my note? Yeah, of course, it's human. We're not all designed to have everything up here. And sometimes something, especially if you're in studio, something could distract you and you just lose your place completely. Oh my gosh, I had that happen once to me and I was just completely blank.
Mhm.
I went completely blank. And I'm just like, I know this stuff like the back of my hand. Where did I go? But it was just like I got fixated on somebody walking across, and it was a pattern outfit, oddly enough, Allie. And I was like, oh, that's really pretty. And then I was like, oh, no, wait, I'm being interviewed. I need to focus here. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. What did she ask me? So I had to ask her to repeat the question, and that's okay too. And I just messed up. I was like, I got distracted. Sorry, pretty butterfly.
Which is also perfectly fine too. So in those kind of situations, better that you be honest and that you get your bearings again, that you try to slog through and, bring up something that was 5 questions ago, you already answered it and you're regurgitating yourself. And the reporter just feels like, are you here? Like, where did you have a moment? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So better that you get your bearings. And you're right, everybody's human. I mean, I'm sure we'll see at some point if I get distracted by something shiny.
I'm going to hold up shiny stuff now just to see. Let's just jump on the personal side. What got you into this, Allie? What made you decide, hey, I want to help other people, promote other people?
Well, so it's interesting. So my goal in life was on this side of the table. It was actually to be on the other side. And that was what I studied for. So I was an English major in college. By the time that I figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, which I thought was a journalist, and I was for a little bit, it was senior year, and I hadn't taken enough classes that I thought that I wouldn't go out into the field and libel somebody or do something else that was not helpful. So I went and got a master's in journalism, and then worked in the field for 5 years, and then felt as if the way that journalism was going. So I got into journalism feeling like I wanted to help people, and that was marrying my writing skills, my want to help people and want to tell their stories. But when it felt like that wasn't necessarily where journalism's going, and it's a little more like talking heads and not so much about the real facts and the truth and the storytelling, then I felt like I wanted to flip to the other side of the table. So reporters call that going to the dark side. I felt like it was going to the light dark side because I went to Northwell Health where I got to meet you. And so it was storytelling, but it's on the other side of the table. So I think it's just I've always loved to tell stories, and that's where this comes from.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, getting people's stories out there is important. And when you were in Northwell, you were so good at picking the right people. Oh my gosh, having those people who give you yes, no answers, it's a killer when somebody's interviewing. And our job as the people interviewing is to keep the conversation going. So if someone just says yes, that means you have to fill in with a whole lot of other questions, or no, and they just flatline you. Oh my gosh, it's painful. We only had one, and they were very dry.
Oh,
It was a doctor, and I was just like,
oh
it was
no.
like pulling teeth. I worked so hard that day to get the interview, but you know what? At the end, we did
Oh.
give the interview. It was one of those days that you weren't there, so that's when I
I was
really
going to say, I hope it wasn't me.
you were not there that day, and oh my gosh, yeah, I was wishing you were because you would have been at the breaks, kind of guiding them to do, to speak. So it's real important to have somebody who helps guide you and train you, and you train and coach people as well, right? You don't just write their stories because you do a lot of different things. So you write people's stories. You have this beautiful news website. I love it. It's a new news site for companies and leaders. It's called brandnews.info, right? Brandnews.info.
Love
And
it.
and that's a great way for you to unleash your journalism and storytelling. And I want to circle back to journalism in a minute because of what's been going on the last couple of years. I know, hold
Mhm.
on to your girds, everybody. But and then the other side is actually getting someone out there into the media, onto radio shows, onto TV shows, into the newspapers and things like that, which you're just amazing at, and doing that side of it to really elevate them in business. So I love that about what you do as well. So and then you combine the two as well for clients. Correct? Am I right on that?
You do, Lorianne. You are just selling me left and right, and I love it. But yeah. So thank you for all the kind words and everything that you're putting together for me. But yes, so on the one side of things, I try to use my journalism to be able to coach people. So to your point, among the worst things that you can do is tell a reporter yes. Yes, what? Among the other reasons, so besides on a radio show, you're filling dead air in that case, and it's not serving the person who's doing the interview. So in another situation, it could mean that then the reporter fills in what your yes means. Did you say yes to this? Did you say yes to that? You don't want to leave it up to interpretation. Just answer what the question is, your opinion. So that's another thing that I do with coaching people is that I found as being a reporter, if you're going to interview five people, for instance, for a story, maybe three of them are going to make it. The other two kind of said the same thing as person A and B, and they were person E. So, you want to have a distinct opinion. It doesn't mean that then you're firing off and, cursing and, taking a very, off to the side, beaten path approach, but you want to have some level of something different to say and something that's you versus repeating and regurgitating what everybody else is saying. So yes, that coaching on the side of things helps land then people into those situations. Because you're right, I would never want to put somebody up for a situation where they're going to flounder and fail, and that doesn't help them, that doesn't help me, that doesn't help you. Why are we doing that?
It doesn't get the story out either, right? It makes it very
Exactly.
one-sided. So, and I don't enjoy that. But journalism, it's really taken a different direction. I mean, I remember journalism when it was had to be fact-based. They had to prove what
Yep.
they say. If they couldn't prove it, if they couldn't show it, they couldn't print it, they couldn't say it, they couldn't show it. What the heck happens with journalism, and how does that make you feel as a journalist?
Well, so if it to give you any kind of context, so I got my master's degree in journalism, ended at NYU at 2007. I was the last class of newspaper journalism graduates in their masters. So that's what NYU thought was happening to the newspaper in 2007, let alone we're in 2025.
Wow.
So, to your point, it was frustrating going from a place where, even as I'm discussing news with whether it's family members or my boyfriend or whatnot, I'll have to ask, like, is that real? Is what you're telling me, is that's a fact? Because that, to your point, there's a fact at the end of everything. It seems we've just put so much opinion on top of it that then it's, so what's the objective truth, so that then the person can make their own informed decision on, is this good for me, is this bad for me, should I want this instead? But without giving those kind of facts and that information, how can anybody really make a decision, because it's just not talking facts.
That's why they call them correspondents. They changed, they shifted, and I saw the shift. And correct me if I'm wrong. And that works with 2007, I think. The after there was the war over, and CNN was covering it. It was I can't even think of the name of the war. But it was
Iraq or
no, no.
Afghanistan?
No, it was before,
Before.
way before that. Yeah. CNN, it was like really all about years ago, all about just giving you the facts, and then the Desert Storm, I think it was.
Yep.
After that, I saw a shift, and there's all these correspondents giving their opinions, and as a viewer, as a listener, I want facts so I can make my own decision. And I think that's what you were talking about before, is I
Exactly.
want to be able to discern whether or not it's right, it's wrong for me, for my family, for what I want, as opposed to
Sure.
somebody telling me what I should think. And I think I believe that, I grew up, full disclosure. Anybody who's listened to this radio show over the last 7 years know I was brought up by two teachers. And so it's, that they shouldn't be leading us in one direction or another, but providing information to allow you to learn and come to your own conclusions, critical thinking. So when it comes to this as a journalist, how does that make you feel that it's just shifted in this opinion based, whether factual or not, atmosphere?
It's very frustrating, and it feels like there's not very much journalism out there right now. So when you think about, so I called it this before there was another movement associated with it, but my frustration with journalism is also, it seems like so many reporters are covering kind of the same story, but not giving any kind of different perspective or different facts or something to it. So if we're going to write 10 stories about, whatever it is, whether it's like the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation, if you're going to have all these different pieces of information, you interviewed somebody new, there's a new fact that came to light, like, let's do it, let's get information out there, like, all there for it. But if we're basically just kind of writing the same things, I called it Me Too, obviously that's not an appropriate term now, but if we're going to keep copying each other and just basically doing the same thing, we're not doing anybody any kind of a service. And it's frustrating because then it feels like, how many stories that were important, that had we just like dug for the facts and like gone on a different angle and looked somewhere else, could we have found something, versus we're just looking at this one little playing field of news and there's so
Yeah.
much more out there.
Yeah, yeah. And so often you go from station to station to station, channel to channel to channel, and it sounds scripted because they are even using the same terms, the same languaging. It's almost as if somebody said, here's the script, everybody talk from the same book. And to me, that's so frustrating. And it's not creative. And it's not like really pulling that real journalistic feeling out of the people. And so many of them don't have a journalistic background, that we see on television and things like that. And I don't necessarily believe you have to be a journalist to be a good
No.
anchor or something like that. But I think as a good anchor, you need to ask the hard questions and you need to find the new perspectives, and so that it's not regurgitation. I think that comes into play because of social media too, don't you? Social
I
media,
think between that and
24
the
hours.
24/7.
Yeah. Whew.
Exactly. Which, on the one hand could be an enormous opportunity where we just, we have to fill 24 hours. What are we going to fill it with? We're going to need, you know, 48, 72, whatever number of stories, because we have so much time to fill. Instead of, to your point, just kind of saying, well, okay, in the 5 o'clock hour we did this, and then in the 6 o'clock present it, but like a little bit differently. Um, to say, so I feel bad also bashing journalists who I work with. It's not that, it's the frustration with the field. There are plenty of good reporters out there, and some
100%.
whom I work with, who are doing
100%.
storytelling and right, and are uncovering the
We're not
facts
actually
and
talking
doing the
about the
things.
we're not actually talking about the good journalists. We're talking
The
about the
people.
people
Right, right, right.
who aren't really journalists or aren't good journalists. So yes, they are, they do exist, but it must make all of your jobs harder. It makes it harder for you to be able to be taken seriously. Are you the one who's telling like how do you discern as a public individual, how do you discern who's the one who's really giving you the facts and really doing the research and backing it up? And I think the only way to discern that is when they do back it up and say, this is what the fact is. Here they are. Let me show it to you. You know, one of the things I think was brilliant, and then we're going to go take a quick break. One of the things that I think is brilliant is when they say so and so said such, and here's the video, you know, where they show you the whole clip, not just a clip of the clip. Because when you take things out of context, you can make anything look the way you want it to look. But you know what? I love this conversation, Allie. We're going to take a short break. You're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne on JBC Broadcasting and iHeartRadio. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 Take Action Success Coach and Strategist. And if you'd like to be a guest or lift up your business or product or non-for-profit, or if you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. We really do answer all of your questions, and as a result of you, we've had some really cool people on. So keep sending in those comments and asking for those people because we love it. It's a lot of fun. Back to Allie. Alexandra Zendrian. She's from AtoZ Communications. Unbelievable PR person. You launched, and I mentioned this earlier, brandnews.info at the end of last year, right? So what is it, and why did you decide to do that? You know, all that good yumminess.
Brand news, so like you said, brandnews.info. So my frustration was, as a PR person, it doesn't happen often, but every now and then, as we mentioned, because of the news cycle, or just because, you know, a pitch isn't timely, maybe a reporter doesn't have time, whatever it is, it just winds up on the cutting room. And I would know that, you know, it was 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, I could have gotten that covered. And so my frustration was, well, why does that have to be on the cutting room floor? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. If it stinks, if it's a stinker, you know, it deserves what it deserves. But if it was good, then why don't we get it out there? So, especially being a former reporter, my frustration was, like, I could do this. If you just let me do this, it could happen. I could write the article. And then it's like, well, yes, you could write the article. You just need a place to. So now we've launched Brand News, and that's giving another opportunity for people who aren't getting the kind of coverage that they want to see to have that opportunity.
I love it. I love it. It's a great opportunity, and I love the articles. They're short, they're sweet, they get right to the point. You're really good at storytelling and just extracting the important stuff. And you could have been an attorney. I'm just telling you, because you extract the important stuff and you get rid of all the other stuff that's unnecessary. So I love that. So I'm an average person, right? How do I boost my persona, my public persona?
I think, as we were saying at the start of the show, it's one thing for you to know that, you know, you do a fabulous job as a radio host and as a take action success coach and strategist. But when you know that information and nobody else knows it, it's not doing either yourself or other people who could benefit from your service any good. So I think it's taking that information and making sure, from a social media standpoint, that you're maximizing those opportunities and getting in front of those groups and using the right keywords and whatnot. From a PR perspective, so among the services that I offer, so I think when people think of public relations, they immediately go to press release, because you see those announcements and that seems like public relations, and that's a part of it. But at the same time, it's thought leadership. So it's taking you, for instance, and merging all the insights that you have, and then saying, if you want to work with somebody like this, this is the expertise that Lorianne has. If this resonates with you, you should reach out to her. So that's a great opportunity for people. And then also, so media relations. So making sure that people are then put in front of reporters who could utilize their services. So if you are great at estate planning, if you're a great lawyer, like you mentioned, so making sure that then a reporter who might need you know that you exist. If they don't know, then there's no way they don't benefit and you don't benefit. So let's just make everybody aware of your beautiful existence.
Yes, 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 please. So there are so many times that I watch somebody on TV or on the news or listen to them on the radio, and I'm like, or a podcast, and I'm like, why them? Why did they pick them? And it's because of exactly that, right? They got themselves out there. They put themselves out there, and with your sweet guidance, someone would be able to actually get their message out there. And that's really important to me. Getting my message out there is so important because hopefully it helps other people not have to go through the same hurdle jumping that I went through in my life. And maybe we can help them take the shortcut around as opposed to taking that long, bumpy road that I decided I chose to take. But it serves me to help other people not take that bumpy road. So I liken it to skiing. If you're going down the blacks and there's lots of moguls, if I can help you around the moguls, let me help you. So the same thing with you. It's like you can help people and get their information out there. What are some of the highlights of your career so far? Up to now, I should say,
Yes.
because there will be
And
many
I
more.
couldn't even Right. And I couldn't even believe as I was, telling you 20 years, it's like, gosh, I've been out of grad school almost 20 years. This is ages up here. But so I feel like career highlights among them actually was being at Northwell Health. So the last year that I was there was the first year of the COVID pandemic. And, so you think about being in New York, obviously the of this when it started. So those reporter genes kind of kicked in, and because camera people and reporters weren't allowed into the hospital to be able to see what was going on, obviously because it was dangerous and infectious. Then we kind of suited up on the other side of things and were providing that, whether it was footage, photos, interviews, and whatnot. So I think, being able to tap back into that journalism part that, when I made the career transition, I didn't want to leave because you just feel like that's your heart and your soul and that's who
Ah,
you were supposed to be. It's just not in the circumstances that you wanted to be. Being able to tap back into that was huge. And then also being able to like give people that truth and perspective at a time when, otherwise I don't want to pretend that I was all of it, but giving that and showing people what it was like at that point when people were doing silly things like licking the toilet and saying, "Well, I didn't get COVID," it was helpful.
yikes! Yeah, that is helpful. What do you love about doing this?
I think it fuels you. Like it's so nice in this kind of field to be able to work with so many different kinds of people. I don't know if like I'm an undiagnosed ADD or whether, that's just how my brain functions, but working with book authors and people in finance and estate attorneys and people in
Coach.
fintech and then on the healthcare side, like just tapping into all of those different things, but saying like each of those things are interesting to me and that's great. Even one of my new book authors that I'm working with had a book related to the military and service and whatnot. That kind of tapped back into actually when I was an undergrad, I had a column for the Philadelphia City paper. It was my first big gig. It was called "Was It Worth It?" And being new to the field, I thought that this was going to be some kind of like fashion column or something, or, was that a good purchase or something? It was about whether families who had lost soldiers felt like their service was worth it. And I was like, oof, I feel like I'm gonna get like punched in the face. Who's gonna like, why are you sending the new kid up for this? But at the same time, it was the most rewarding thing that you could go through because nobody's answer was ever no. I mean, it could be a shade of no. Obviously, you're frustrated that you lost your loved one, but they all respected that service and even if they were frustrated with the war, like that was their loved one that you were talking about. And it was such an enlightening and rewarding experience. And I'll never forget like that first family that I interviewed will always be in my heart somewhere.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Just amazing. What's your favorite success story where you got somebody something that maybe even you didn't think you were going to be able to do?
So I think recent success story, well, relatively recent. So while I was at my last agency, I was able to get one of my clients into the Wall Street Journal, and it was through months of like hounding and trying different angles and like, oh, what do you think about this and that? And then when you finally get it, and it was like right at the end of the year, I think I was like on vacation at the time, and I saw it come out, and I was just like, my year's been made. Like I don't
Damn.
even know what to do with this. This is just like mic drop. We're good.
Yeah, seriously, bam, mic drop. That is awesome.
And you're so elated for the client too, because like they want it bad, and it's a while, and you were kind of frustrated through the process. Felt like maybe it's not going to happen, and like it finally does. It's such a feeling.
It's so good, so good. I just think it's such a brave, courageous thing for you to step out of other agencies, which would be and or walking away from working in an organization the size of a Northwell and starting your own agency is so courageous and so wonderful, and you're so good at what you do that, I'm not surprised, but I was surprised that they would even let you out the door because I would have been like, no, 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 stay here. But that you start your agency is such a courageous thing. So I really do applaud you for that. Stepping out of our comfort zone isn't easy, but it's always so rewarding, right? It's elation, there's an elation to it as well.
Is. And it's interesting, it's not something that I ever would have thought for myself. Being part of North, I felt like I could have retired there. And similarly, being part of other groups, like you enjoy them and you feel like that's where you want to be. But as somebody who never would have thought that they would go the entrepreneurial route and like do brand out on their own, in a weird way, I'm so glad that I did it because it really does. You get to do things the way that you wanted to do them. You know that your perspective on things is right, and so you get to follow your gut and make sure that things are done in the way that you think is right. And the market validates it. So if I'm not right, then I will lose business and my family won't get fed. And if I'm right, then that means that everything works out and I'll have lots of clients, and we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I think your family will be just fine.
I hope my family
Just
eats.
Yeah, your family will eat. It'll be fine. And, some firms don't believe in PR and stuff like that. How do you jump that hurdle?
So it's definitely, it can be tricky. I feel like a lot of firms will think that there's this high price tag for PR, that it's got to be like tens of thousands of dollars to work with an agency. Or when you think about it, if you're going to have somebody in-house, then that's a salary and benefits and whatnot. So I think it's explaining if you want to think about it from a brand reputation standpoint, so it's safeguarding and making sure that people aren't saying things about you that you didn't want to be said.
Yeah, it's
And then,
reputation management. Reputation
yep,
management.
and taking them to task when that happens or getting things corrected and whatnot. So, I mean, in some ways, PR can pay for itself in that respect, depending on the situations that a firm or a leader finds themselves coming up against. But even then, on the positive side of things, there are some times that one placement literally like generates all your future clients. I mean, it's not always the case. Not everybody gets the Wall Street Journal, but being able to put yourself out there and let people know that you exist. We're in that kind of world between the number of people that are out there and all the various different kinds of social media. If we're not connecting A and B, we're all just kind of like floating and we don't find each other.
Yeah, yeah. Do you help people connect their social media, their website? Do you give them guidance as far as that goes? So that when you push out there, the people who are interviewing or wherever they're going have someplace to go and it's consistent. Isn't consistency important?
Consistency is huge. I think it's also making sure that all of those, depending on what you're setting up. So if you're in a situation and there's going to be a question that's asked of you and you know that it's going to be kind of controversial, you want to make sure that then you have that either addressed on your website in the way that you want it to be. So whether it's then having an FAQ and making sure that all of that there, that's part of the reputation management of just being able to foresee all the different ripples that might come about and making sure that you've planned for them. So yes, I think it's huge to have your social media aligned with your website, aligned with what you're saying in interviews so that you're not going askew in one area and then talking about, five other things in another area. It all needs to be harmonious.
Yeah, yeah. So let me just circle back to something you said before about, sometimes the companies don't think they either need or that it's a price point or anything like that. What would you say to them to convince them that it's worth the spend? Because it is worth the spend. Any kind of marketing is worth the spend.
Well, first of all, on the one side of the argument, I would say that you don't necessarily need to be spending $10,000, $20,000 a month, or the price of somebody's salary to be doing PR. Everybody's got different models, and everything works the way that it should. So, for certain firms, it makes sense. You need to have somebody in house, and that's perfectly justifiable. In other cases, you don't really need that much, and working with an agency makes sense. But, there are plenty of ways to get, whether it's press releases, thought leadership, proactive media relations, working on blogs that are SEO'd the right way so that you're getting noticed in your local area versus somebody else. You can get that kind of stuff for a few thousand versus 10,000 in some cases. It's just finding the right person. So I would say, there is a misperception that it needs to be, tens of thousands, hundreds of that, it doesn't necessarily need to be a huge spend. But to your point, I would also say that, you know, this is creating your prospect pipeline. So, I mean, that's huge. Converting prospects into clients, also huge. And then just making sure that your reputation is being upheld the right way. So, I mean, that's maintaining your current client base. So, it might seem like it's a luxury and a nice to have, and there are certainly times when budgets are tight and it becomes that thing that gets cut, and I get it, but also it's not as much of a nice to have as what people think it is.
Yeah, it's a different kind of marketing, So if you look at it that way, it's definitely coming out of the marketing budget. It should come out of the marketing budget, um, so that you can get the placement that you need. And if you're not getting that lift, what's the point? What's the point? So again, I call it going underground. You go underground if you're not getting your name out there and your voice out there. And just because you're on social media doesn't mean your name and your voice is out there in a cohesive manner where they understand what it is you could do for them, because we all are like onions. We do a bunch of things. I was actually talking to somebody that I'm going to be collaborating with, and the more we talk to each other, we're like, oh, you do that too. Oh, and I do that. Oh, you do that too. Oh, so it's amazing because we do more than one thing. So for your instance, like you're a journalist, you're a marketer to a certain extent too. You're PR. You do other things. You're also a mom, you're a sister, so you have all these different things that are in your toolbox. And we just assume, here's your label, this is what you do. So you really need to investigate and get that know, like, trust factor. And that's something I think you do too, is you help people expedite that know, like, trust factor, right? You're out there helping people understand this is a good person. They know what they're doing. Let me introduce you. And it comes with a cachet because you're doing that introduction.
Yes. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And actually, so just an article I was using the no like trust factor, and I was thinking of you. So thank you for that. I have to give my kudos over to you. But yes, so I think you can use things like client testimonials, and that obviously increases your no like trust factor, and you're trusting that somebody else is saying, if it's a 2-star restaurant, then it's a 2-star, it's not a 5-star. But on the other hand, you can also use other methods of PR to do that. So it can be getting out and sharing your story and having somebody engage with you and like you because you support this cause or because you do this thing and that resonates with them. And so that might be what it takes to move somebody from a prospect or somebody who's not even aware that you exist to a client, and somebody who's a raving client, no less.
Yeah, yeah. And so you do the PR, you do the press releases, you get people on radio, TV, get them in newspapers, you get them placement on the internet, you have your brandnews.info out there. But you also go out and you talk about them to other people and you help elevate their people's awareness of who's out there doing some really good things. But you also do awards. You also submit your clients to get awards and things like that, which I think is a real important thing. You know, we always wonder how that happens. It's like, how did I get that award? I got a call recently and they were like, "You're up for such and such an award." And I'm like, "I am." And they're like, "Yeah." And the PS found out it was you. So you did the submission and I had no idea. So it's really nice to be able to have that as well. And that's a really, really good thing to add to your website, to your social media. And that helps with your know, like, trust factor. That helps to confirm that all those testimonials that you get and those client raving, I call them raving fans, right? My raving fan clients, that just kind of puts a bow around everything, don't you think?
Absolutely. And so to your point, so I think one of the underrated or underutilized opportunities are awards, like you mentioned, and conferences. So trying to get you those speaking opportunities, because if you're in front of
Yes,
that audience and those are exactly the people that you're trying to sell to, I mean, you can't do any better than that. Then it's just the coaching to make sure that you're, presenting yourself appropriately. But, have at it. Like, let's 100 people sitting right in front of you into your newest clients. So, and to your point about awards, I think that there you're tapping into that brand's brand cachet. So whether it's a local brand or whether it's an industry group or whatnot, it's just then exposing you to another audience as well that maybe you weren't really a part of before. So it's realizing where you are currently and where you want to be, and I'll help you on the path to get there.
yeah, yeah. Speak to the professional. Speak to Allie. Allie is amazing. Allie Zendrian. AtoZ Communications PR.com is her website. The other website you really want to visit too is brandnews.info. All the information will be with this episode as well. Allie, thank you so much for your insight. Thank you for coming on and sharing your yumminess. And thank you for coming on this side of the microphone.
Thank you for even having me. It's always a delight, and now I know what it's like, what my clients have experienced from you, and I got to say it's radiant and awesome and wonderful. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Allie. See, this is why I love her. So many good things. And thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we earn the privilege of your time. Again, I want to thank our guest today, Allie Zendrian from AtoZ Communications PR.com. Reach out to her. She can really give you good guidance, give you a strategy, help you elevate everything that you're doing, from a book to a product to your business to your individual self. She will help you along the way and is an amazing, good, wonderful, honest person. In the meantime, look for our show next Saturday at 3 p.m. on JVC Broadcasting and iHeartRadio. We can also be found on all major platforms and would be so grateful if you please like, follow, share, and subscribe. Until next time, and I hope you have a really good week. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 take action success coach and strategist. Let your dreams be bigger than your fears and let your life be filled with joy. Until next time, have a good week. Thanks to Allie.